You can listen to The Front on your smart speaker every morning. To hear the latest episode, just say, "Play the news from The Australian."
From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Friday, September 13. The government has stripped combat medals from up to 9 current and former officers after they were accused of turning a blind eye to war crimes by their subordinates. But Opposition Defence spokesman Andrew Hastie, a former SAS captain, says senior commanders have been let off the hook for a lack of moral courage that went all the way to the top. That story's live now at theaustralian.com.au. Nine used to be the great powerhouse of TV in Australia. Now it's a bit of a soap opera, with yet another top executive out the door. So what's going wrong at the entertainment giant? What was the moment when Nine Entertainment jumped the shark?
What have you got to say to the women who've made allegations against you?
Was it when the Australians James Madden and Sophie Ellsworth revealed Nine's TV news boss was facing unproven misconduct allegations?
Why weren't you upfront about why you left Nine?
Was it when the company's chairman shoved our journalist Liam Mendes to the ground at Canberra Airport?
Don't. You've just assaulted me. You've just pushed me. It's all on camera. Mr. Costello.
Was it when he then tried to deny it?
I did not lay a finger or a fist or anything else on
Mr. Costello, for the people.
Or was it when he then left his job?
Good evening. Former Federal Treasurer Peter Costello has resigned as chair of Nine Entertainment.
Maybe it was when the chief executive stayed at a luxury boutique hotel in Paris and ran with the Olympic torch while his staff were striking for better pay.
Why don't you just stop and have a chat to us now?
So I'm meeting my family and...
You're a boss of a media business here for work, or are you here on a holiday with your family?
On Thursday, Mike Sneesby was out. Here's his statement, read by an AI voice.
In recent months, I have reflected greatly on my plans for the future, and in consultation with my family and those close to me, I made a personal decision to consider new opportunities in 2025.
James Madden is the Australian's media editor. James, Mike Sneesby is considering new opportunities for 2025. What might they be?
He is. Well, he's certainly not committed to any new job at this early point. I think that's just a comfortable phrase to say when perhaps you're leaving somewhere earlier than initially planned. But look, he's been 3.5 years in the top job at Nine as CEO. The dogs have been barking, though, for Mike for the past 6 months. And he made reference to that, I think, in his statement this morning where he said it's a year that's really tested the resilience of everyone at Nine and acknowledged that it had been a tough period.
He came into this role after the previous CEO, Hugh Marks, quit his role early after he was accused of impropriety over his relationship with another executive. There was no complaint of misconduct or anything there. But what does that tell us about stability and the culture at Nine, that this is the second CEO in 3 years who's had to leave early?
Look, I think what it tells us, Claire, is that whilst the rhetoric around Hugh Marks's departure might have been, it's time to clean things up and to improve the culture at Nine, it never really happened. I think it's fair to say that Nine has taken their eye off the ball, particularly with regards to the relationship between senior figures and younger staff. And we saw that play out with the Darren Wick saga and the Darren Wick resignation earlier this year, which in many ways precipitated Sneesby's departure.
Now, Nine is today a very complex business that involves streaming platforms and newspapers, but the core of Nine Entertainment is the Nine Television network, which for generations was one of the most stable companies in Australia under the Iron Group of the Packer family. It's quite a remarkable change, isn't it, from this almost institution to something that's now more of a soap opera? Yeah,
it is. And in many ways, the front page picture earlier this week taken by Liam Mendes of ex-news boss Darren Wick, who's obviously at the centre of many serious allegations, doing a walk of shame, if you want to call it, out of a supermarket car park. The imagery of that was quite striking, given that for so long, Nine has been so successful in catching people out, calling people to account, and now the spotlight's back on them.
Yeah, famous for elbows out journalism, a current affair, really the instigator of the kind of foot in the door journalism that both of these people have fallen victim to. For you, what was the moment that it all really went wrong for Nine and became inevitable that these people would lose their jobs? Was it Peter Costello pushing Liam Mendes to the ground? Was it the allegations against Darren Wick, which of course again are unproven?
I think the allegations against Darren Wick emboldened many staffers to come forward to our newspaper anonymously and to other media outlets as well. There's a real sense of enough is enough. This is the moment where we're not going to take it anymore, because Wick and others had been so all-powerful in that organisation for so long, and many women had left in desperately sad circumstances, is the truth, that felt that they, because they didn't comply with the directions and the wishes of certain male bosses, they felt that their careers weren't able to progress. So I think, in a sense, the dam burst. Even when women were talking about their experiences anonymously, the pressure that was brought to bear inside Nine on the culture, particularly the TV and current affairs division, was so great that subsequently Peter Costello couldn't even answer fairly mild questions from Liam Mendes that day at the Canberra airport, that once he lashed out, it was almost emblematic of the old guard of the company metaphorically lashing out at what they perceived to be unfair scrutiny on their cherished culture.
Mike Sneesby then went to Paris and ran with the Olympic torch while the print division's journalists were on strike here in Australia. What did that moment tell us about Sneesby's judgment and about his level of focus on print?
I'm sure if he had his time over again, he wouldn't do it. He did seek to defend the carrying of the torch by saying, well, Nine was the host broadcaster of the Olympics for Australia. He'd committed to this a long time ago, and he was representing Nine as a whole. That may be true, but optics are everything. And the image of Mike Sneesby running through the streets, suburban streets of Paris in the days leading up to the Paris Games, while the company was in turmoil at home, particularly at that point the publishing division, who were in the midst of some delicate pay negotiations, it just sent the wrong message. The message was really that my priority is not staff, it's over here in Paris having a good time.
Coming up, should we be sad that this titanic TV network has fallen so far? Culture's one thing, but Nine's share price has fallen over the past 3 years from $3 to roughly $1.20 today. That's very hard to come back from, isn't it, James? And what are the decisions that have been made that have caused that problem?
I think, and this isn't specific to Nine necessarily, but a lot of media companies, particularly broadcast companies, were hoping and expecting that the soft advertising market would bounce back sooner than it has. Now, as we sit here today in September 2024, it hasn't bounced back, and it's been flat since the end of 22. So we're coming up to almost 2 years of a really flat advertising period, and there's no turnaround in sight. I suspect that a lot of companies, including Nine, maybe bet against the fact that the ad slump was going to continue. So you've seen a significant outlay, particularly on sports rights from Nine in the last 2 years, namely tennis and the Olympics are the big two. And with the Olympics, that was an enormous sum of money. They paid $305 million for 5 Olympic Games. We won't really know whether or not that was a wise investment until Brisbane 2032. But in many ways, it's a back-ended gamble, because you'd expect they are going to lose money on the 4 games leading up to Brisbane and are hoping to claw back an enormous sum in 2032. And of course, it's difficult to sit here in 24 and know what the media landscape's going to look like in 2032. That's certainly something that's going to be hanging over the company's head for another 8 years.
Nine has put in an interim CEO, Matt Stanton. He's the CFO. At Network 7, their great rival, the bean counters, are also in charge after several of their executives left for exciting new opportunities as well. What does that tell us about the fate of media companies in 2024?
Possibly that they want to take a more sober approach to future investments, I suspect. 7 is also in dire straits in terms of its financials. Both 7 and 9 reported very disappointing results in the past few months, and 7 share price has been woefully low for many, many months now. It's interesting that Matt Stanton has obviously, as CFO, been appointed acting CEO. That's not necessarily any indication that he will ultimately be appointed. But I think in coming years, the expectation will be that costs will be tight, spending will be tight, and certainly any frills are likely to be pared back.
Is there something sad about that as a journo, James? 9 was famous for its largesse, incredibly high wages for some of its stars, a culture of long lunches and boardroom drinks nights. What's your feeling about this sort of the big shift that we're seeing?
Well, it's sad for those that benefited from such largesse, certainly. I don't think it's a surprise. In many ways, I think maybe that culture of certain media outlets is simply being brought into the modern era where any kind of excess is viewed poorly by shareholders, and I don't think the younger generation who work in the media are expecting that anyway. It feels like it's a period of change.
It's sandwiches at the desk from now on.
That's right, and water from the tap.
James Madden is the Australian's media editor. Thanks for joining us on The Front. Our team is Kristen Amiot, Jasper Leake, Leah Tsamaglu, Joshua Burton, Tiffany Dimmack and me, Claire Harvey. Don't forget, all the best journalism is in The Australian, 24/7.